Okay, so this is the Transportation Committee of the Common Council. Today is Tuesday, December 8th, and we are meeting today really to have a discussion about the Bloomington Transit Corporation Board and appointments or vacancies or lack thereof on that board. So just to refresh, we met, I think, a couple weeks ago to look at applications because we were under the impression we had a couple, that council had a couple of vacant seats to fill. But after doing some deep diving into the board and its terms, it looks like that was incorrect. And so we will have our council attorney, Stephen Lucas, talk a little about that, or a lot about that in this. But I thought what we could do tonight, this evening, is look at a couple items, right? So appointments in general, the status of this board and its current council appointments and when those terms expire and what qualifications are needed then to refill those spots. And then talk about the appointment of Doug Horn by the Monroe County Republican Party Chair, William Ellis, that was made to fill the vacated seat of Alex Cartwright. And then review the term for Nancy Obermeyer that we thought had expired, but in fact it does not expire until July 2021. And so maybe think about clarifying that for her and the public and going forward from there. How does that sound?
Sounds fair enough.
Great. So Mr. Lucas did a lot of digging here. So I think it would be good for him to go ahead and lay the foundation of what we're looking at now.
Sure, thank you. And I will say City Clerk Nicole Bolden did most of the digging, and I'm happy to give a rundown, but I think she's also here to answer any questions that might come up. As Kate mentioned, I think this committee met back in mid-November, and at the time there was a question I think that came up about the political affiliation limitations for this board. And I wasn't at that meeting, but in case there was still a question, I think the clerk's office and the legal department have both gotten in touch with the county to confirm that the membership of the board complies with the party limitations. Alex Cartwright and I think James McLary is the other member on the board that voted most recently in the Republican primary. So I'll get into Doug Horn's appointment by the Republican county chair here in a moment. But as far as the membership of the board goes, I think that it's in line with the party affiliation requirements set out by state law. The day after the committee met, I think November 18th, there was an issue spotted with the lengths of the terms for the 5 seats that were listed on board and also on the city website. It appears as though the lengths for those seats were listed as 1, 2, 3-year terms, and I think there was 1 4-year term. Those term lengths were actually the initial terms for the board as set out by state statute. The same statute then calls for 4-year terms after the expiration of those initial term lengths. This is similar to what we do in our own local code. It sets out initial staggered terms and then regular term lengths after, so that you're not turning over the entire board in 1 year. It looks like when on board was set up, at least for the council appointments, the council started going off of the terms that were listed on board. Those terms were incorrectly put in as the initial term lengths, and so the council appointments got out of sync with what was called for by state law. So we've already talked with IT. They will either be fixing that or may have already fixed it to reflect the 4-year term lengths.
Yeah, it's on. I just pulled up Onboard, and they all say 4 years now.
Okay, and the deep dive that I mentioned Nicole did involved going back to the start of the board, which was in 1982, and counting forward to make sure that we knew when the appointments should have happened, to take a look at when appointments actually did happen, and save for a few, I think, midterm appointments that had to happen because someone stepped down, in the middle of their term. The council appointments at least lined up quite well with the 4-year terms, and it looks like Onboard was the start of where things got out of sync. So they've fixed the term lengths on Onboard, but that still leaves the question of the current members. So Kate mentioned Nancy Obermeyer. Her term length should extend until 2021, July 31st of 2021. I believe she was last told in a letter from 2018 that her term actually extended until July of this year. And so one possible action the committee might recommend, and the council could take as early as tomorrow's special session, may be to clarify that term length for the seat that Nancy's in, and affirm that her term extends until July of 2021. Kent McDaniel, who is the council appointee currently serving in seat C3, he happens to be in a seat that had an initial term of 4 years, and so there's no issue with that seat. His term actually does extend until 2022. With Alex Cartwright, the term he was told he was serving and the actual term for that seat did in fact end in July of 2020. So by coincidence, he was told he was serving a term that ended this past July. And again, counting forward from 1982, the term that he should have been serving would have ended July of 2020. As Kate mentioned, William Ellis, who's the Republican Party chair for the county, announced on November 19th that he had appointed Doug Horn to fill the seat that was occupied by Alex Cartwright. And he referenced a state law that gives authority to the county chair of a political party for a member whose term has expired. So again, the term for Alex Cartwright, both the term he thought he was serving and the actual correct term for that seat did expire in July. I don't see a reason why William Ellis would not have the authority to make that appointment. The state law he cites allows for the appointment by the county chair when the appointing authority does not fill a vacancy. I think that's the case here. Again, the clerk's office also confirmed the political affiliation of Alex Cartwright. He did vote in the Republican primary this past year. Nicole, is that correct?
Yes, in 2019 and 2020.
So I don't think there's any issue with Alex not being considered a Republican. So I think William Ellis is the county chair of the political party of the member whose term has expired as called for by statute. So again, I think William Ellis had the authority to make this appointment. It's a little unusual. I think the Public Transportation Corporation Board would appreciate some clarity from the council on whether this appointment would be recognized, or I don't want to say accepted, because I think it's within the authority of the county chair. So I think they are looking for some guidance on whether the council will recognize or otherwise challenge this appointment. I see no grounds to challenge it. And I think if this committee wanted to recommend that the full council recognize the appointment, the council could do so at its meeting tomorrow. I think the PTC board next meets Tuesday of next week, excuse me. And so tomorrow may be the last opportunity the council has to weigh in before they're faced with the question of who's on our board.
Councilmember Rowland.
Yeah, just to be clear, the county chair has the privilege of naming a person when the council has failed to act within a certain window, right? So if he makes his appointment now, it's still the council's appointment when it comes up for renewal. Okay, thank you.
That's my reading of the statute. I will also say this statute is the subject of an ongoing suit between the city regarding the Plan Commission. That case may provide some additional guidance. I don't know when that case might be resolved. I think the facts of this particular appointment are quite different from that case. But if that statute or if that case provides any clarifying guidance on how to interpret this particular statute, that could affect things. But I think what you just stated is the most logical reading of the statute at the moment.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yeah, is the state statute, does it say, does it talk about Democrats and Republicans, or does it say no more than 3 members from one political party?
The state statute for the PTC board.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Because I think like on the utility service board, it was no more than so many from a particular party. And so we could have, there's some other parties out there other than
right.
those two.
It states that the appointing authorities shall make appointments to the board of directors so that the number of directors belonging to either of the 2 major political parties does not exceed the number belonging to the other by more than 1. And then it goes into if the appointing authorities can't agree on the manner in which this will be done, and I should say the appointing authorities in this case are the council and the mayor. It states that the municipal executive shall make the appointment that results in one party having more directors than the other. That's in the case that the council and the mayor can't agree on how to divide up their appointments. So you raise an interesting question. If there were, let's say 3 Democrats, 1 Republican, and 1 Green Party, I think you'd run afoul of this state statute that says that the members of one of the 2 major political parties can't exceed the other by more than 1. So you could get into some interesting combinations there. But in this case, I think Alex Cartwright and James McLary were both Republicans. The other 3 members were Democrats. Obviously, William, Nicole, I don't know if we checked on Doug Horn's most recent primary voting history.
No, I did not, but I can't imagine that William wouldn't have. So he, and also I think he knows his party pretty well. So, but I will double check it if you like tomorrow morning, and I'll be happy to do that.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How many days do we have after the end of the term to get the appointment executed?
Do you want me to, or
Whoever knows. Yeah.
90
We
days?
have 90 days.
Is it 90 days? I thought it was 90 from previously doing an appointment, but I just wanted to check. Okay. Thanks.
Other questions? Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Tomorrow is a special session, right? Do we have on the agenda anything about boards and commissions?
Not at the moment, although I think Council President Volan was interested in revising the agenda ahead of tomorrow's meeting to make room for any recommendations coming forward from this committee.
Okay, good.
That's correct.
I should note that the special session tomorrow is scheduled for 5 minutes. And that could pose an issue.
Talk fast.
I mean, at worst, we can make the appointment on the 16th, but, you know, if it's possible to do it tomorrow. I mean, if in fact there's, you know, we have no alternative here, which it seems to be the case, you know, we might as well put it on the agenda, but I'm open to either course of action.
I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this is what Clerk Bolden was about to say, we can acknowledge the appointment, but because we waited 90 days, like that appointment is real. So I think it would just be a recommendation from us to say, like, right, like we honor that, we acknowledge it, of Doug Horn. But Clerk Bolden, do you want to weigh in on that?
I was actually just going to ask for clarification for our purposes for follow-up, but I think I should probably wait until you guys are done. Sorry, I've been jumping the gun a lot lately.
Okay. Councilmember Volan.
So again, just to reiterate, there is no action to be taken because an action has already been taken according to law.
I think that's the case, although I think that the PTC board would appreciate any clarity the council could provide as to if the council, you know, wanted to contest the appointment of William Ellis. I think indicating that that's not the council's intent, that the council you know, recognizes that appointment may help provide that board some clarity ahead of its next meeting so that they know who to recognize.
What is the date of their next meeting?
I believe it's Tuesday of next week.
The 15th.
Okay.
So during the meeting, can we just make a motion to recognize the person as, and we go from there?
Well, we don't have to make a motion, but we can just do a memo from this committee meeting to acknowledge that appointment and to clarify Nancy Obermeyer's term. Councilmember Volan.
Well, I guess I would say that in the absence of a motion to contest the nomination, you know, like if no member of council says, I object to this and we should challenge this nomination, you know, then effectively it stands. So like, I'm not expecting any member to bring such a motion. But that would also be a way to address the issue by saying, you know, I could ask either at the special session or at regular session on the 16th, is there a motion, you know, towards this nomination? Is there a motion to contest it? If there is none, then that's a de facto acceptance of the nomination.
Well, Mr. Lucas could comment. I still think as a committee, we can just say, like, we recommend that we acknowledge this appointment.
Sure.
And just, you know, because things have been a little up in the air here. So,
and beyond Doug Horn's, the appointment of Doug Horn, I think providing clarity on Nancy Obermeyer's term length might also make sense. And so a recommendation to clarify that her term extends until July of next year may be a good idea.
Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Just in response to Councilmember Volan's suggestion, I would much prefer to be proactive rather than saying, you know, coming out and saying, since there's no negative move to counteract something, it is passed. You know, I think it would be neater and cleaner to just come forward and say, we accept this appointment or acknowledge this appointment. Is that, or if we don't have to do either, if the minutes of today's meeting are sufficient, then that would take care of it.
This is an appointment that would normally be made by the council. I think it would be it would make more sense to have some motion, like Isabel just mentioned, be made tomorrow. I don't know that you couldn't do things the way Councilmember Volin just suggested, but I at least for the PTC board, I think they're looking for some affirmative guidance. And I don't know that you have to do something like that, but I think it would help provide.
I'm sure we can prepare such a motion without much trouble for tomorrow. So
Make a motion and then wish him well. And so we
how about
play
I'll start right now. I move that the Transportation Committee accept the nomination of Doug Horn to the Public Transit Board by the County Republican Chair, and acknowledge that the term of Nancy Obermeyer expires July 31st, 2021. Is that correct?
Second.
That's my motion.
second. Yep.
Okay. We can just do an all in favor here, I think. Is that
If you
okay?
want discussion, we could discuss it, but
Any discussion? I think anything else?
All in favor, do the wave.
you want
Okay, good. This is a fun committee. Okay, this is a fun committee. Okay.
I should also note, and maybe this is something Nicole was going to say, that assuming the council provides some clarity tomorrow, I think letters would be sent out to the current members to clarify there. So Nancy, a letter I think would be sent to Doug Horn, letting him know that he's been appointed and the city's recognizing that. A letter to Alex Cartwright, I think. And then there are several folks who have applied for what they thought were vacant seats. And I don't know that a letter would go out, but probably an email would be appropriate to let them know that a vacancy won't actually be up until next year. And according to Isabel, I think onboard has already been corrected to reflect the correct term links. We did have a chat with IT today, and it sounds like a kind of a broader audit of the information on onboard, maybe something that's needed in the future. I think the term links here may have been a one-off. I hope that most other term links are correct, but as far as some of the history of each particular seat, I know that when onboard was created and some of that information either imported or just put in there, I don't think folks went back and, like Nicole did with this board, they did not go back to the beginning and list with precise detail when each member served. You know, did they leave their seat early? So some of that information is just wrong and onboard, and so I think a broader audit may be coming. So just a note there.
Councilmember Piedmont-Smith.
Could we get a list of all the boards and commissions that have partisan type rules about appointees?
Yes, and another item of discussion with IT was to make sure that beyond just party affiliation, any requirements for membership on any given board be clearly listed under the information section for that board, so that it appears not just on onboard, but also on the website for members of the public who are interested in learning more or potentially serving on the board. They should know, what requirements there are. And I think
onboard is the website, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Isn't onboard the website?
So onboard is a website. It's accessible by the public, but it also auto-populates the main city website. If that makes any sense, there's a separate page on the city website for each particular board and commission.
Got it.
Separate from onboard, and all of that information that's listed there is auto-populated from onboard. So I think IT was going to give permissions, editing permissions to the clerk's office and the mayor's office, so that if any information like the political affiliation or any other requirements are missing, those offices can more easily edit and supplement that information. But yes, to directly answer your question, we can either get a list, or I think we have a list of all of the board and commissions with party requirements, and we'll get that to you.
Thank you.
Clerk Bolden.
I just had a question for clarification, and I'm basing this on the assumption that the council as a whole will approve your recommendations. But if that is the case, you would like a letter to Nancy Obermeyer reflecting her correct term, a letter to Mr. Horn indicating that you've accepted his appointment and welcome him on board with all the normal information that we send out, a letter to Alex Cartwright thanking him for his past service, and an email notification of some sort to all the current applicants that there are no vacancies for the council appointments. Is that correct?
Yes, I have a question just about one word. If, I guess the word accept for, it's small, but for Doug Horn, I don't think we really have like the power to accept or reject. So like, would it make sense just to say like we acknowledge his appointment so that we're not, we're just saying like we're not contesting this, right? But
okay, I thought that Steve's recommendation was to accept his nomination.
We've used that
Right.
term before. We accept a report, for example, as opposed to approve a report. So we're not approving a nomination, we're simply accepting
okay.
it. I think that's a sufficiently neutral term.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do we, I have a question. Do we need to send Mr. Ellis any kind of acknowledgement?
I think we can copy him on the letter that we send to Mr. Horn since it was his appointment, if you like, or we can send a separate letter. Whatever you all prefer, we will do.
What do you
Copy
think?
sounds good to me.
Copy's fine
Okay.
with me.
Copy.
Copy.
Copy that.
Thank you. Okay.
I just
Okay.
saw on onboard that this commission, the Public Transportation Board, pays $100 a month. I did not know
It
that.
does. Mhm. It does.
Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah.
I know there are a few people on this, so do we want to take a minute and just open it up to public comment if there is any? Just, let's do it.
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it, Chair.
Okay, so that's what's happening. If you're new here, raise your hand. We'll unmute you. If you have any comments. Okay. While people are pondering anything else here, do we have more business? Feeling good? Okay. Well, I think we can conclude our meeting. Report out tomorrow in the 5 minutes at the special session. And all right, get everything back up and running for this board. Sounds good. Okay. Anything? That's it? Okay. Thank you all. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Great seeing you tonight.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very
All right.
much.